Good morning, everyone. This is Mike Bellum with Life Scientific. I really wanted to thank you all very much for attending this segment of our webinar series. We haven't done a lot over the past year or so, just a couple. And you'd thought we'd have been busy doing more of these. However, we had so much work to get through that this kind of took a backseat, but we do have several more webinars planned with different manufacturers around different topics. So hopefully in the future, you can get involved in attending some of those. And it's been a nice program for us. And today we really have quite a broad range of registrants from multiple disciplines. We have people from several departments in pharma and consumer product manufacturing, production development, contract manufacturing, mechanical, process, chemical, and packaging engineers, validation, and government as well. We should have a really good Q&A session worked up by the end of this webinar. If you do have any questions or comments, just put them on the chat, and Marco, our great moderator, will field those questions. We'll try to get to as many at the end of the session as is possible, and if we don't get through all of them, we'll certainly address any questions via email or phone call, whatever may be most appropriate. We are recording this presentation and we'll send out a link to everyone. So if you feel like you need to study more or prepare more for the final examination, you'll be ready. So anyway, just a little about Life Scientific. We formed in 1992, focusing on the representation of manufacturers of parenteral production machinery. We largely tailor to the pharmaceutical market, but certainly have a fair amount of crossover into chemical, food, and beverage. We're based in St. Louis and have project engineers covering jobs throughout the Midwest. Over the years, our company's been involved in well over 5,000 equipment projects throughout the Midwest. So we've done one or two. Generally, we're involved in aseptic processing environments, vaccine storage and stability, traditional vial filling, labeling, sterilization, washing, custom process skids, and container integrity testing. Certainly, if you have any jobs that we can help out with, we appreciate the opportunity. Earlier this year, we started representing Brevetti Angela's extensive and very innovative line of blow, fill, seal equipment. There's our product line. And okay, I guess this is slide 4. My screen control is not really working all that good. Anyway, today from Brevetti, our presenter is Rajiv Kapoor. He's a mechanical engineer with 24 years of tenure at Brevetti. He serves as the director of marketing, but has a really pretty interesting additional role. He's also the director of R&D engineering for Brevetti. He started out on the production floor as a line engineer, worked at a couple of different pharma manufacturing facilities before starting with Brevetti, and operated blow, fill, seal equipment, and brings a really interesting and very impressive array of ideas, innovations, and also patents that his name is on in this field. So he has a real solid background in sterile and aseptic production of injectables, IV fluids, hemofiltration, and ophthalmics. He's also been a frequent speaker at PDA events, the Blowfield Seal International Operators Association, the ISPE, VEC China, the Management Forum, Hexagon, and many other conferences and meetings. He's a really good speaker. I hope you find him entertaining, and make sure you work up some good, tough questions for Rajiv. And with that, we'll turn it over to him. Thanks, Rajiv. We really appreciate you taking time out to do this for us.
Thank you, Mike, for this introduction. And welcome everybody and thanks for participation in this event. And thanks to Life Scientific to organize this event and the efforts to reach diverse spectrum of audience. So the statement within this presentation are all my personal opinion. Through this presentation, we will try to answer some few questions like what is BFS technology and why, especially why BFS technology, and at the end, how to evolve the BFS to BFS from the existing process. So here are two definitions, one from EU GMP and one from PDA Association. Basically, Blowfield seal technology is a pharmaceutical filling process in which containers are formed from a thermoplastic granulate filled with product and then sealed in a continuous integrated automatic operation under controlled environment. Here is a paragraph from European GMP guide. Blowfield seal equipment used for aseptic production, which is fitted with an effective grade A air shower, may be installed in at least grade C environment, and provided that grade A or B clothing is used. The environment should comply with viable and non-viable limits at rest, and the viable limit only when in operation. Blowfield seal equipment used for production of products which are terminally sterilized should be installed in grade D environment. And because of the special technology, particular attention should be paid at least in the following, like in equipment design and specific qualification, validation and reproducibility of cleaning in place and sterilization in place, background clean room environment in which equipment is located, operators training, very important, and clothing, and interventions in the critical zone of equipment, including any aseptic assembly prior to the commencement of the filling. Interventions in critical zone, and then we will look into that aspect later. To show you how a Blowfield seal process works, I have a short film here. Starts with polymer granule feeding the extruder, extruding it into the aerogen, which is a closed balloon of molten plastic. Inside, sterile air is filled or sterile nitrogen or any other chemical gas. And here is the graphical representation of the whole process. Formation of the containers, filling of the containers. Formation of the second stage of the containers. Filling of the containers. The second stage. cycle, you'll find these containers will form, fill, and seal. The containers which are removed from the flesh or the scrap will get delivered on the conveyor. Which then are taken out of the container. The machine has automatic CNC and SID. All the filters, pipelines, tubes, and everything the right in place without filling anyone of them. The injection of the operating sector. It shows in the back of the So that was an overview of the Blowfield seal process, starting from polymer to the plastic granule, to the filled and sealed container within 10 to 15 seconds, depending on which size of the container we are manufacturing. Sterile filtered. So here is a graphical representation of the whole process. Parisian is extruded and it is captured in the mold, which is water cooled. And once it is captured, the Parisian gets cooled immediately, except for the top part of the Parisian, which does not come in contact with the cold surface. And through that opening, the filling is done. Once the containers are filled, the nozzle go up and they get sealed by the top part of the mold. So mold is in two parts and molds are water cooled. First, the bottom mold closes to form the container, and then the top mold closes to close the filled containers. The whole process takes place in under grade A air shower or class 100 air shower. Once the containers are made and filled and sealed, the mold opens up to deliver those containers for the next processing stages of deflashing and delivering them on the conveyor. As I earlier said, the whole process takes place between 10 to 15 seconds, to 20 if the container is much bigger, or instead of the containers we are molding the syringes, then it would take about 20 seconds. This shows a complete range of the product which can be made on a Blowfield seal machine. The biggest one here is 13 liters, aseptically filled and sealed. And here are the smallest container, which are 0.2 milliliter. In between, we have 1 liter bottles made from different polymers, 100 ml, 250 ml, eye drops with a screw cap. This is our recent introduction to the Blowfield seal process, where we mold the syringe, fill them, and close them, stopper them, and close them. From the syringes range from 0.2 milliliters up to 20 milliliters. And this particular syringe, which you see here, it has a port on the side. This port can be opened up and to be filled at a later stage. So basically, we can make the empty syringes and deliver it to the pharmaceutical manufacturer for them to fill later under the laminar flow. And this is particularly helpful when you are trying to establish stability and compatibility with your pharma product. So if you want to establish the stability and compatibility, this is the kit which you go for. So that gives you the first opportunity to test your product in the syringes without even buying the machine. So here are different products which have been made already on a Blowfield seal machine. So eye, ear, and nose drops, inhalation solutions, infusion and injections, rinsing solutions, drinking solutions, vaginal applications, rectal applications, disinfectants, diagnostic contrast agent, various biotechnological products, oral applications, ointments, sterile water for reconstitution, skincare, cosmetics, creams, and ointment, wound care, temperature sensitive product for biotechnological industries such as vaccines. Yes, recently we have delivered machine for vaccine production. So the question would be why, how, when you start up with high temperature. Yeah, so recently we have delivered a machine for vaccine production, and the question would be obvious that starting from a temperature of 200 degrees centigrade and within 10 seconds, how can a temperature sensitive product can be filled? Yes, it can be filled if we are able to cool it rapidly, and we have found ways of doing that. In order to understand the whole process, what else is required apart from the Blowfield seal in order to make the whole process go? So treatment of the water, and then filtration, purification by distillation or reverse osmosis, feeding that to the solution preparation tanks. And once the solution is prepared, it is fed to the Blowfield seal machine, which is placed either in grade B or C or D environment, depending on which kind of the product you intend to produce. Once the product is made inside the Blowfield seal machine, the secondary packaging operations can be done, like cap assembly or labeling, inspection, and then they are sterilized. Leak detection, after sterilization, leak detection or visual inspection, labeling, and the packaging operations can be done. If they are aseptically produced, you don't need the autoclaving step. And to support all this, there are utilities which are needed, like steam, pure steam, chilled water, compressed air, which are fed to the Blowfield seal machine. And finally, the product is packed in carton boxes and pelletized. This is an overview of the BFS process. So what is the challenge today is we are facing a challenge to manufacture safe, compliant, and effective formulation at acceptable cost. The price of standard IV solutions, reconstituents, has remained constant over several years, and in many cases, the prices have gone down instead of increasing. So India, China, Mexico, Italy, the prices have actually gone down over a period of years. Aging population, global financial meltdown, and increasing generic producers are all driving forces to reduce the cost of production. For mass vaccination, device cost is important. There is a need to cost-effective pre-filled syringe to administer right doses. Here is an opportunity for Blowfield seal, because Blowfield seal is a technology where it is intended for mass production with focus on the cost, because from the container production to filling and sealing is all done within the same machine. So there is no additional cost, but at the same time, because there is no additional handling and the filling and sealing takes place in a very short time, the chances of contamination also gets reduced because of this quick process. Because there is very small time of the exposure to the environment, and the whole process is automatic. So there is no human intervention. So what do we expect from a container closure system? That the solution, the container closure system should be able to keep the solution sterile, and the manufacturing process should be compliant to the current regulations. Number of particles of a particular size should be less than prescribed limit in the pharmacopoeia. Pyrogenic substances should remain within acceptable limits. Container closure system should remain integral throughout the shelf life. And throughout the shelf life, quantity, concentration, and active ingredients within the container should remain within acceptable range prescribed in the pharmacopoeia. Throughout the shelf life of the container, pH and the solution should remain within acceptable limits. Substances leached out in the solution by the container enclosure should remain within prescribed limit and should be of the type acceptable by pharmacopoeia. Throughout the shelf life, the container enclosure system should act as a barrier against agents which can degrade the solution. This is what we expect from a container closure system. So if we compare that with conventional fill and seal process, where the containers are made and then they are cleaned, pre-sterilized, depyrogenized, and subsequently filled and closed. The whole process takes a lot of time from the realization of the container to the filling and sealing. The containers could be either glass ampoules, vials, or bottles, or plastic bottles, plastic bags, plastic vials, or syringes. But from the realization of the container, making of the container, to the time they get filled, there's a lot of time and a lot of exposure to the environment. On the other hand, there is the other technology, which is fill and finish ready to fill containers, which are nested containers. So that in that process, the containers are made, cleaned, packed hermetically and then pre-sterilized, depyrogenized, and then delivered to the fill and finish pharmaceutical facility. In the pharmaceutical facility, they are filled, they are depalletized, depacked, and then filled and sealed. In such an arrangement, there is a lot of wastage of the material, and we will see how. So what is the disadvantage in the conventional fill and seal process? The time from realization of the primary container to the filling and sealing is long. There are several steps involved after realization of the primary containers before they get filled and sealed. So this increases chances of contamination and cost of production. Space requirement also is high in such a process. So if we take a conventional glass container, washing, depyrogenation, sterilization, filling, stoppering, and sealing, you would need at least 18 meters by 6 meters space. Whereas in a Blowfield seal machine, this would need just 36 square meters, 6 by 6 meters. If we look into the disadvantage of the nested ready-to-fill containers, it involves hermetic packing followed by sterilization and depyrogenation, increasing the cost of the primary packaging containers significantly. And there is significant increase in the cost to maintain the inventory, because you need to maintain certain inventory of the empty containers in the nested form. Ecological footprint is high because of packaging materials needed to be used to deliver the ready containers. So if we see, there is a lot of loss of packaging material here. There is tub, and there is the matrix where you can arrange the vials, and the whole thing is packed. So once such a nested package arrive in the pharmaceutical facility, it needs to be depacked and fed to the decontamination chamber, where the external surface is decontaminated and then opened, and the containers are fed to the next stages of filling and sealing. But the whole packaging material here is lost, and that increases significantly to the cost. Similarly, also for the pre-filled syringe, nested pre-filled syringe, there is a lot of loss of packaging material. And that's why the cost of pre-fillable syringes are high compared to the syringes made on a blow-fill machine. So if we compare that with the blow-fill process, in any conventional process, glass, for example, of a primary packaging process, the containers are previously formed and then they are either washed, rinsed, sterilized, as we have seen, depyrogenized, or after formation, the containers are washed, rinsed, dried, and packed hermetically in the nests and then sent for terminal sterilization. The pre-sterilized containers are fed to the filling machine through a surface decontamination chamber or through RTP port. Whereas if we compare the whole process to the blow-fill seal process, is that the containers are continuously formed and are immediately filled and sealed without any intervention of the operator, in a fully automatic process under controlled environment. That is how the chances of contaminations are reduced and the cost is reduced, because there is no additional handling of the containers once they're formed. So if we look into the advantages of blow-fill seal, the process is easy, short, and less expensive. Sterility assurance is very high, one of the highest in the industry. Particles, containers from the BFS machine contain much less particles compared to glass containers, because glass, it sheds a lot of particles when they bang with each other. Disposal of used glass containers is difficult. It takes a lot of energy in order to dispose the glass containers. Whereas disposal of the blow-fill seal container is very easy. In fact, it can produce energy if it is incinerated. Starting time of a blow-fill seal process is just few minutes. If the heating of the extruder has reached to the set point, then it just takes 5 minutes to start the blow-fill seal machine, as compared to 2 hours for a glass line. Cost. If we look at the cost, a 5 ml plastic container filled with sodium chloride is sold in the hospitals in India at a price of less than 1.3 cents euro, sold to the hospitals. A bottle of 500 ml sodium chloride is sold at 15 cents. One of the lowest cost of production in the industry. It doesn't take any additional closures. Logistically, in case of plastic containers, by Blowfield seal, there is no need to transport the empty containers to the filling facility. The empty container is made in the field and filled and then instantaneously sealed. Moreover, plastic containers occupies less space and weight. No breakages because of the plastic. Easy to use. So those were some advantages of Blowfield seal containers. So if we compare with the conventional technology, let us say space, a requirement to store the polymer granules for an inventory of 2 days, and the space required to store the inventory of 2 days of empty containers, you can say that it is BFS. If it is X, for conventional technology, it could go up to 5 times to 30 times more space requirement to store the empty containers. Space required for fill and finish operation, up to 5 times the space required for a Blowfield seal machine. Water usage considerably high if it is glass, because you need a lot of water to wash and sterilize these bottles. Loss due to breakages and very high. In case of BFS, you get a very high assurance of sterility assurance levels. But yes, glass has advantages also. Borosilicate glass containers, because of their chemical inertness, excellent barrier properties, high transparency, and mechanical stability have been successfully used in decades for packaging parenteral drugs formulations. Lot of data is available about compatibility and stability of the most common pharmaceutical ingredient in the glass. For plastic containers, such stability and compatibility data needs to be generated. And that is where we will see how the transition to Blowfield seal can occur. So thermoplastic granules, which granules can be used? Polypropylene, LDPE, low density polyethylene, and HDPE, high density polyethylene. All can be used with the Blowfield seal process. But how to select one of them? So here is the comparison. If the product need to be terminally sterilized, it's better to use polypropylene. If the product is required to be squeezed, like in ophthalmic products, LDPE is a better material. If better barrier is required from oxygen and evaporation losses, HDPE could be a better material. Polymers can leach out substances in the container, in the content of the container. So there are substances which can be extracted from the polymer, and the substances which can leach out in the content. So organic and inorganic chemical species that can be released from surface of the component used in manufacturing and storage of the drug product under condition of normal use. Generally, the ideal scenario is that it is a leachable should be a subset of extractable, but in practice, something like this is seen. There are some species which are not seen in the extractables, can be found in the leached product. Monitoring of the extractables and leachables. So leachables that migrate into pharmaceutical product from manufacturing and packaging are required to be identified, monitored over shelf life of the product. The collected data permits a toxicological assessment to be made with respect to any leachables found, ensuring patient safety. Key to this is determining safety concern threshold, SCT, for the product under investigation. So SCTs were introduced by PQRI, which are leachables and PQRI, leachables and extractable working group. These are defined as dose below which individual leachable would not elicit effects, carcinogenic or otherwise, which could constitute a safety concern. So the SCT is established, and it is the limit of the SCT is based on the risk, and the risk is based on the route of administration. So it is low risk when it is a topical solution, or it's an oral tablet or oral liquid, because the liver will somehow intervene. Whereas inhalation and aerosol, they directly get into the bloodstream, and that's why there is highest degree of concern there. Similarly, also for injectables, there is highest degree of concern. So the limit of is set to be 0.15 microgram per day for high risk, whereas 1.5 microgram per day for low risk situations. When it comes to the particulate contamination associated with Blowfield process, the principal source of airborne particle in the reciprocating BFS machine is the smoke, which is generated when Parisian is cut. The other source of airborne particle is in a Blowfield seal machine is generated by the friction of the different moving parts. But, that is most important, the principal source of viable airborne particle in a reciprocating Blowfield seal machine is presence of personnel inside the clean room. So if we reduce the presence of personnel inside the clean room, that will reduce considerably the chances of contamination. So modern Blowfield seal machines are operated without anyone inside the clean room. They can be started up and monitored without any operator. So how to reduce the number of airborne particles in a reciprocating Blowfield seal machine? Remove the particles generated when Parisian is cut. As soon as they are generated, remove them. So in the modern Blowfield seal machines, there are particle extractors right near the place where the Parisian is being cut by hot knife. Avoid that the remaining smoke particles do not reach to the air shower, and that is ensured by the right kind of airflow inside the aseptic processing area, and that is monitored. So that is validated by smoke test. And design the air shower in such a way that there are no vortices are generated. So if there are no vortices, the air shower will not take in any particles from the environment and deliver it to the bottle being molded. Reduce the number of persons, reduce the personnel in the clean room, handle the whole process automatically. That will also contribute to reduce the contamination. From the realization of the primary container, reduce the time that the container is filled and sealed. So make the process as quick as possible. And that is the modern Blowfield seal process is done within 10 seconds from the realization to the filling and sealing of the container. Reduce the area of open container. Make the opening as small as possible and functionally acceptable. Carry out the operations of transfer, filling, and sealing under a controlled environment. And that we will see how we ensure that. Keep the containers at high temperatures until just before filling to help reduce the microbiological contamination. Product to be filled should be conducted through path which is clean and pre-sterilized. And that's why there is a process of CIP, automatic CIP and SIP in the Blowfield seal process before you introduce the product inside. Headspace should be sterile. So the bottles are blown with the sterile air which is generated within the machine. Once the container is closed, it should remain closed till the time the content is administered. So once the containers are made, produced in the Blowfield seal, they are leak tested to ensure that there is the container closure integrity maintained. More automation, less human intervention. So even the startup of the modern Blowfield seal machine is done without any operator. Reduce the particle load in the surrounding area. So there should be a control in the surrounding area. So in a modern Blowfield seal, the filtration system is arranged like this. The extruder is located here. Extruding head is located here, and these are the molds on the sides. And this is the air shower where the filling and sealing takes place. Besides the filling head, there are two HEPA filters which direct the flow in such a way that most of the air goes in the direction to push out and keep away the particles generated by the knife, hot knife. The rest of the air is bled out through the front opening so that nothing can get inside through the front opening where the containers are coming out. And this is monitored or validated by a smoke test. Here is the photograph which shows this arrangement. There are HEPA filters on the side here. This is the grade A air shower where filling and sealing takes place. And the particulate environment near the open container can be monitored continuously by the particle counter mounted on the filling head. In order to reduce the cost, the productivity should be high. And that's why we introduce the SIFPAC twin machine here. And the concept is that you start your process with a standard Blowfield seal machine, which can produce certain number of containers. Let us say, for example, 10 milliliter, and you can produce 13,000 containers in an hour on a standard Blowfield seal machine. If you convert that to the twin setup, so here you have 6 meters by 6.7 meters, 5.2 meters by 6.7 meter clean room. And when you would like to produce higher number of containers, you can order the tools, additional tools, and within the same footprint, you can produce 60% more. So from 13,000 containers per hour, you can start producing 60% more, which is 20,000 containers per hour. So if we take as an example, a 50 cavity machine in a clean room of 6.7 meters by 5.2 meters, we can produce 0.2 ml, 1 ml on one tool or one mold, 2 and 10 on another mold, and 25 milliliter on a third mold. At the speed of 16,000 for the containers between 0.2 ml to 1 ml, from between 2 ml to 10 ml, 13,000 containers per hour, and the third mold, 7,000 containers per hour. So you can see that the flexibility of this of a Blowfield seal machine from 0.2 ml up to 25 milliliter, all you can produce on a single machine using different tools. But then when you need additional production without making any change in the clean room, with the twin mold or we can produce 20,000 instead of 16,000. 27,000 instead of 16,000, 20,000 instead of 13,000 containers per hour. So without making any change in the clean room, what we did is increase the production by 60% more. If that is not sufficient, you can go for a twin double mold configuration where you can reach to a production of 54,000 containers per hour for 0.2 ml, 40,000 for 2 ml, between 2 ml and 10 ml, and 24,000 containers of 25 milliliter, up to 25 milliliters. So that kind of scalability is possible with a Blowfield seal machine. And that is possible with the area of the clean room, 36 square meters. And when you come to this configuration of the double mold, you will need about 60 square meters. And you can produce about 250 million containers in a year with such a configuration. These are pictures of double mold machines. And what else? We can produce also the syringes on a Blowfield seal machine, and we'll come to that later. Here are syringes in different period of time we have made. For example, in 1998, we made this prefilled syringes with a needle which can be screwed on the threaded part of the container here. Later, we produced the syringe, second generation syringe with an embedded or staked up needle. And these are the regular syringes with plunger and plunger rod made in 2012. Different variations of the design. And we can see the machine capacities from 13,000 up to 40,000 per hour. Polymer consumption of only 4.5 grams. So this can make one of the most cost-effective syringe in the world. Here, syringe with a stake needle, polymer consumption 3 grams, and machine capacity from 6,000 syringes up to 12,000 per hour. And the cost would be less than 2 cents each syringe. This is another design variation. Let us see how a pre-filled syringe can be made on a Blowfield seal machine. This is the Blowfield seal machine, and rest is the arrangement acceptable with the components in the Blowfield seal. Decontamination chamber to decontaminate the external surface of the bags with hydrogen peroxide. whole process took between 12 to 15 seconds to make one series of pre-filled syringe. So one of the uses of such an arrangement is that this is the conventional scenario where you have water for injection ampoule and the lyophilized powder here and the syringe used for reconstitution. Total time 3.5 minutes for a reconstitution, and the cost to deliver is cost of ampoule plus vial plus sterile empty syringe. If you look here, water for injection is already filled in the syringe. 1 minute of preparation time in the hospital and significant saving in the cost. So we have seen reasons why we should migrate to the Blowfield seal process. And what is Blowfield seal? But how to migrate? So calculate the cost of Blowfield seal container closure system which we intend to produce. Compare it with the COP of the existing product. If advantageous, the step 2 is to establish whether the candidate product are suitable for and compatible with the BFS container closure system. And how can we do that? Using a ready-to-use, the first one is using a ready-to-use kits for sterile empty ampoules, bottles or syringes. We can supply you such kits where you can use those empty containers made on a Blowfield seal machine or empty syringes made on a Blowfield seal machine to establish the container closure, compatibility, and stability in that particular container. Or else we can make the pilot mold to make specific container which you desire. And then we can fill your product in our workshop, or we can use the facility of a contract filler to fill your product. And once that is done, and once that product is found stable and compatible, then the next is to order the machine, or you can identify and work with a contract filler or rent a BFS machine to fill batches required for registration, produce small batches required for clinical trials, and test market your product. And if you are satisfied with the whole process, then you can buy the machine. There is yet one more possibility, is that you just buy a fill and finish machine with capacity of 1,000 doses per hour up to the 5,000 doses per hour. Buy empty Blowfield seal containers made using specific polymer which you desire. And these are delivered sterile, packed in double bags. Use such a machine to fill and finish your product, register your product, and then when you are ready to scale up, migrate to the BFS process, the registration file will need minimum adjustment because the containers are made on a Blowfield seal machine and they're registered with the specific polymer which you desire to use. So from few thousand containers per hour up to millions of containers per hour can be done using one of these methods. Rent or use preformed empty BFS containers and dedicated filler which we rent out to you. And these machines are different capacities, have different capacities from 1000 unit doses per hour up to 5000 unit doses per hour. I introduce my colleague, Engineer Massimo Consolaro.
Nice to meet you, everybody. Good morning to everybody. So my name is Massimo Consolaro. I'm the head of the automation department at Brevetti Angela. And I will take a very short time to explain and show you what we are doing from an automation point of view and validation point of view and data integrity, which is very important in all of our business. So as you know better than me, that data integrity is a major issue, and you just need to think that 50% of the FDA letters of 2017 refer to data integrity breaches and issues. So what we are considering is to adopt the Alcoa Plus principle in our machines. Let's see that. Okay. So what we need to consider in the machine is that the data that we are managing throughout the life cycle of the data needs to be attributable. So I need to understand who is generating this data. It's legible, so it means readable and permanent, and enduring. So I need to ensure that records are readable throughout the data life cycle. Okay. Needs to be contemporaneous. So it needs to be measured at the very time and recorded at the very time of the measurement. Okay, it's not possible to have some data taken on a notebook and after that recorded. So all the data we are trying to manage like that. Original data, that means coming from the original source, from the original sensor, and accurate, so it means free from errors, complete, and it should not be possible to be edited in a second time. What we are also providing is some remote help to our customers and remote data analysis. So sometimes things are happening and scenarios are happening in a machines that we are not considering deeply. So what we can do is to perform a periodic health check of your machine on a regular basis. It means we are connecting with your machines and we are checking the status of the machine. Maybe check if the cycle time is comparable to the golden standard of the machine, if the parameters of the machine are okay, if the status of your filling valve are okay, if the timers are set correctly, and if your productivity is aligned to the productivity that you normally should have. We have also deployed in the machine a condition monitoring, not only based on time-based maintenance, but we are using need-based maintenance alerts. To do that, we are using vibration sensors and monitoring the energy consumption and utilities consumption. That means that when we have some problem in the machine, we are aware of it because we are measuring it and we are taking some action even before the damage can happen and stop your production, okay, to increase the availability of the machine. Here we are trying to help the operator in different ways. And this is still, we have the time-based maintenance alarm, where you can see this progress bar that are filling up with relevance to the production time. So the working hours of the machine will increase, and also this blue bar will increase. And for various areas of the machine, you will be automatically reminded, for example, to check the sensor, to check the emergency switches, to check the air and cooling circuits, etc. We've got dynamic reporting and historical data analysis, machine statistic, various KPIs, where you can filter the data you want to see in a period of time and see the graphics about it, the trend. So what we are going to do as a recent advance update here is that, okay, with this kind of graphics, we can understand what happened in the past. So we can have a very fast root analysis of the problem. And this is great. But as we said, we are also using need-based maintenance alerts. So we are monitoring the early signs of failure, and we're going to act before a problem happens. We are now also deploying some artificial intelligence in the machine, which maybe can be explained better in another webinar or something like that. It's a very new advancement where we can have suggestion for the machine can suggest the operator who can be in doubt or can be making a mistake, can suggest the correct behavior to have in order to have the better productivity which can be available in the machine. And with this, I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pass the mic to Rajiv. And
Rajiv?
Yes, yes.
If you have something to add.
Well, I do. Thank you both very much. We really appreciate it. And just to generally summarize, why would you want to evolve your process to blow, fill, seal? It's easier to maintain and monitor the aseptic conditions. You only have to look at a little area. There are online particle counters that are in the equipment. So if there is a particulate issue that ever comes, you're gonna be notified immediately. So aseptic conditions is one of the solid reasons to move into blow, fill, seal. Inventory management is streamlined. The amount of area where you have to inventory product is reduced. You don't have the storage of empty containers, stoppers, crimps, syringes. All of it can go into one. So if you're trying to reduce the footprint, not only in the production area, but in the upstream inventory area, that's a good reason to think about evolving the process. If you're trying to generate more automated processes, reduce people, reduce human interaction, of course, that attributes to a better aseptic product, but also more efficiency and less downtime due to personnel issues. You're reducing the overall footprint of the production area. You don't really need the central services area for blow, fill, seal, like the washer and autoclave that you would require in a traditional liquid filling system, like the equipment that we've been handling for 30 years. The filling and sealing's done all in the same machine. And one key interesting benefit we didn't really touch upon, but if you have an interest or a client that is looking to have a customized container, maybe their marketing department has a new twist on something, you know, you've got a lot more options than if you're looking at a 5 ml vial or a 10 ml vial. Do you want that in a 5 ml or a 10 ml? Okay, so maybe you can get molded or blown, but you know, there are infinite opportunities for customization of the container. And that also means you've got a lot better vehicles for counterfeit protection that you can build into the overall package, all done in the same process at the same time. And because we're reducing so much of the packaging material requirements and a lot of the waste, the system overall becomes quite a bit greener. Additionally, because we're not having to wash and process so much, the utility consumption is going to be reduced significantly. So overall, you've got more aseptic, more automated, less handling, and lower number of parts that generally are going to be required, and get a more aseptic process. So it is something to seriously consider when your volumes are getting there or you have product design needs. The primary difference in the process is you really are going to start looking at, well, what is the container design going to be? What are the polymers that might best fit with that particular container? And then once we select the material, what's the compatibility with our product going to be? Certainly, then you're going into more of the physical planning, how much inventory space, what utilities, what size of water processing system is going to be required, and the things that several of the engineers that are online today can certainly help you in the overall facility design of the unit. But we're going to have the mold design process and the stability testing that will come in for blow fill seal that might not be as apparent in a traditional line. So that just summarizes what I know to be the reasons to evolve and some of the differences in a traditional filling line versus a blow fill seal equipment item. So Marco, I think, has been fielding some questions. Marco, is anything come up that we should address between Rajiv and Massimo? How long does it take to design a mold?
Good question. So it takes, once you have a concept in the mind, or you have a certain outline of your product in mind, it would take about 1 week to give you the container design. And from once you accept the container design, it would take about a month and a half to design the mold. To build a pilot mold, it would take 3 to 4 months. And to manufacture the final mold would take about 6 to 8 months from the point we start discussing about your container design. I hope I have answered the question.
Okay, so the following one will be how long the typical stability testing would take.
If you carry out an accelerated stability study, about 3 months, and if you carry out a full stability study, it would take about a year.
I guess, Rajiv, I have a question. So is it frequent that you find a client wants to adopt their product to blow fill seal, but cannot due to polymer incompatibility?
Cannot do the, sorry, I didn't get your question.
They can't run the product because of the interaction with the polymer.
Okay.
Is that something that happens very often? Is the process of transferring from glass to a polymer?
Very rarely it happens, very rarely. And
so typically, if a process is being done in glass, you would anticipate you could find a good polymer that it'll be compatible with.
yes,
Great.
About 99% chances that we will be able to come up with the right kind of polymer to to contain the product.
Great. Well, hey, again, thank you, everyone. We really appreciate your time. If you have a project you're thinking of, well, I guess that's kind of why we're here. We'd love the opportunity to be able to get involved and see if we can help you conclude on a good system for doing your manufacturing. As I had said earlier, we have a link that we'll share for the recording, and you'll know where to find us. If there's anything we can do, let us know. We'll be glad to help. Thank you all very much. Take care. Have a great day.